And there's the reality, of course, of making a living doing what you want to do. You can pull yourself back, you can get yourself a day job, but those minutes that you're spending there, they're taking away from your development, from your energy, from your ability to do what you do. For artists that are working on the margins and working with such small amounts of remuneration, that's just like what's been described here for the last hour. It's just kind of frightening, and it's always been the case in this country, but we do it because this is what we do, but sure, it would be nice to be even to make, live at the poverty line doing it. That would be so great,
Mm-hmm. Can I say that I feel like we have the best job in the world, and we are working within the most vital music form in existence. Improvised music is uniquely positioned to provide the world and ourselves with something that is new, truly something that has never occurred in existence and will never occur again. And that is the nexus of how we get to the next stage of humanity. That's why I do it.
Improvised music, it's really live art. If you really want to convert people to listening to it, which I think needs to happen because the day of the record store nerd is gone, and I think people are hungry for this kind of thing, more so than ever. The fact that we go to noise shows where we throw a noise show or something like that, and there are 30 or 40 young people of various backgrounds in this place there to see a really strange thing, and who are actually engaged with it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good sign.
I mean, a lot of the audience cultivation usually stems out of my personal relationships in the community, the musicians that I work with, the people that I see when I was shopping that week, the people that I run into and say, you got to come see this, A lot of times people will come just because, they don't really know much about who's playing, but they trust that it's a concert at Hall Walls and it's going to be worth checking out. And there's a lot of variables. I mean, I still see new people in the audience all the time. Like, how did you hear about this? And they'll tell me about some website I've never heard of, and I don't even know how the information got to them. So that's nice to know that at least, even if people aren't coming, they know that it's happening.
Describe what's going on in like DC and in New York, because in Detroit there are a couple of private foundations that will do funding for the arts. There's no government support in Michigan. I mean, there's like, you can get like $1,000 as an individual if you're a visual artist and like live in this one county, there's no public support. So it's all labor of love. There's just no thought of ever getting money for booking something. It's all door gigs. I know there are venues in Detroit that have chunks of change, like some of the museums and stuff, that they can bring in touring artists. But other than that, friends from other places contact me about, can you book me a show in Detroit? And I say, yes, you will never get more than the door. And the door is going to be, this is going to be a drain on the owners. The owners of the venue are going to do this because they like you and not because of any financial gain on their part. So there's not much money in Detroit.
I'm really more interested in that discourse we're talking about, creating this radical discourse of representation. That's always been a problematic thing for me touring, because I tour a lot. I feel like it's irrelevant for me to go on tour and playing to the same audiences and the same, the homogenous nature of curatorial and bookers. It has come to a point where where there's a need to really create that difference. And I think if you can bridge that, I feel like that audience we're talking about, I think there's that intersectionality will take place. But that means you need to work, right? You need to work towards a lot of bullshit that's there.
local level, why you do something that's so thankless and, you know, occasionally book people who end up being assholes, is you do it because you want, like, I'm not happy with the way the scene is, and I want to change it to be better. And I also want to have people come in and open up a dialogue and address music in a way that I think is relevant and that I think wasn't there before. So like what Tashi was saying with regards to, you know, any kind of visibility or any kind of like discussions of, you know, it's like a hashtag or dirty word, but like identity politics or whatever, is it feels like it's something that has the dialogue around that seems to have been kind of missing for a while, and I'm somewhat relieved to an extent that it's come back and that people are working towards that, because I think that's the only way to really have an interesting creative community, is if it's diverse and open and, you know, welcoming. And if it's not one worth supporting.
In my mind, it was always like, you know, the jazz and this music is the progenitor of all of that, of all the indie scene, you know, we call it DC Jazz Law for a reason, because that's what the music is in my mind. Finding yourself part, you know, and there's a lot of discussion around tradition and legacy and all these sort of things, but I've found myself a part of that, and I feel very, very fortunate and lucky to have found myself in this journey, to be here at Elastic Arts in Chicago, in a city where in a city whose scene and legacy I've studied for, you know, since I was in high school, and to really just be here and be in this conversation, to be in this framework of my peers, especially at a time right now when there's a real changing of the guard going on in this music, in academia, in the scenes. We're going to be defining what's going on.